Hi, I'm Marion from Autistic Pride Aberdeen. I'm here with my colleague Felicity. Hi, Felicity. We have two lovely special guests who are here to celebrate Autistic Pride Aberdeen with us today. So we'll say hi to Lisa Collinson. Hi, Lisa. And Aileen Patterson. Hi.
No, I feel like I'm on a game show now.
Well, I mean, we are going to ask questions.
Okay.
Can I quiz you about your special interests?
Go for it.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. So today we thought for celebrating Autistic Pride, we would take a good long look at special interests. We find that there's something that is quite often problematized that people kind of talk about in really negative ways. So we want to get rid of that stigma and just thoroughly celebrate and embrace them. So I guess to start off with, what's your special interests?
Don't know who wants to go first.
I'm happy to go for it. Well,
you go first, Marion. You go.
Yeah, I've made a list. How very, very autistic of me. Right. So one of my biggest special interests that I'm sort of taking part in a lot at the moment is Zelda, because, you know, as if my necklace and my hoodie that I've got behind me doesn't give it away enough, I spend a ridiculously huge amount of time playing all kinds of Zelda games, and I'm really looking forward to the remake that's coming out, although a new one would have been better. While I'm doing that, I'm quite often watching Star Wars or Star Trek in the background, and I think Flick, you and I had a chat recently about special interests, and I'd said that I just started rewatching Deep Space Nine. Yep. I'm nearly finished it already, and that's only been a few weeks. DuckTales, as you can see, is another huge special interest, and I brought along my Lego Scrooge McDuck because that leads into another one. You're all jealous, right? You all want one of these, I'm sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I need to build a money bin now, I think, so you need to get into it. Lego is another one. I absolutely love building Lego models, especially Star Wars Lego models. I think they're fantastically fun. Marvel movies, I don't think I've gotten bored of watching them at all ever. I pretty much generally watch them really, really regularly. Spider-Man especially has been a special interest for an incredibly long time. If we're thinking about over the last year as well, Animal Crossing. I think a lot of people did really get into Animal Crossing last year. And the other thing that I've got a big collection of that I'm going to mention today, there are so many more, but fidget toys. I think I have an enormous collection of fidget objects and fidget toys, and I'm not finished collecting. There's still quite a few out there that I'm wanting to get. Yeah. So that's almost taken up our time. So, or how about we hear from others as well? Yeah.
So I've kind of I've got different ones which sort of rotate and then interact with each other in interesting ways. So, one is Lego as well. But I haven't been doing that so much, so I probably won't talk that much. Although I probably will mention it. And another I've been doing more recently during lockdown is my art. Something I've really sort of taken off, and it's sort of taken over my flat basically. And there's just like paint, everything's covered in paint now. And writing as well, which we talked about last year, and nature. So there's kind of things that rotate and sort of, just interact. So sort of art about nature, poems about nature. So this is, can you see that?
Yeah, beautiful.
So this is a painting with bits of cut up poetry in it, which just made their way into it. And I don't know if it'll move. See if I can get it to move forward. Oh, there we go. And it's another one. It's actually like a Rumi poem, or a little bit that says, "There's a morning inside you waiting to burst open into light."
That's lovely.
Really beautiful.
And this was another lockdown one. And I've got like a little box of words which are cut up from mostly from my own writing, and just I sort of pull them out the box and just see what I get. So this is what came up. So it was, yeah, in the steep silence, remember who we are. And I guess it was, at that point when I was sort of, being late diagnosed as well, and I was just like trying to process lots of things as well. So yeah, it seemed quite relevant.
Mm.
And just, I guess, remembering who we are as autistic people, we're not, we're not what people say we are.
Are you able to read it, Aileen, or were you?
I can read it. Yeah, I'll try and read it.
Thank you.
So it's got a poem for autumn. I like the quiver of excitement as the wind stirs leaves, how they sigh and glow as the sun catches every colour, then goes. I like the fat black birds that sit so at home as the wind shakes the trees and they bob, as though in a stormy sea. I like how no leaf tries to be like all the other leaves, and all their different colours are beautiful together. I like that each leaf chooses its own time to fall, how they innately know when to stay and when to go. I like that they whisper to me all their secrets, and if I touch their rough bark, they will listen, and I will whisper mine back.
I literally have goosebumps right now. Oh, I really, really like that.
Isn't it gorgeous?
It's so beautiful, and to hear it in your own voice, I think, makes such a difference as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely lovely. I really like that a lot.
I was just thinking, I'm still looking at the poem, I'll be looking at this afterwards, and there's so much in there about kind of subtlety of feelings and subtlety of communication, just sort of how much can be packed into little hints of expression. And to me, that's kind of really closely related to my experiences of life. So I kind of really see my own feelings really reflected in this poem, which is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Yeah.
Okay, and I guess it's this relationship with nature. I think a lot of people have as, a lot of autistic people have as well. And it's sort of trying to explain that, and it's like you were saying it about how you talk to people about your special interests as well, Mary. And it's like it's hard to explain that to people. It's hard to explain why it's important and why you just want to go by yourself sometimes and just have that connection with things and trees and everything. And it's like, I think people sometimes think that's a bit odd, or it's a bit, they don't really understand why you don't want necessarily to have somebody there talking to you all the time.
Yeah, so the bird in your poem, Aileen, your beautiful poem, reminds me of one of my special interests at the moment, which is corvids, all kinds. It started off kind of being crows specifically, and then once I started looking into crows, I found out about ravens, and yeah, it kind of went from there. So ravens, crows, magpies, rooks, jackdaws. Yeah, that's my big one at the moment. Some of my kind of lasting special interests from when I was kind of younger are the TV show Friends. I kind of see it as being a bit problematic these days, but I still kind of get some comfort from it because it was a big one when I was younger. And also cats. I was just always really into cats, and we have cats now, so that's good. Yeah, but my other special interests would be Firefly, which Marion and I discussed for a video recently. And then like other TV shows that I watch over and over and over again would be things like Spaced, a lot of like the British kind of comedy stuff like Spaced, Black Books, Red Dwarf, Blackadder. And then some of the other ones that my husband and I have been watching a lot are things like a lot of the Marvel kind of series, Witcher, season 2 coming soon. BoJack Horseman was a huge one actually over the last kind of year or so, and Rick and Morty as well. So some good cartoony ones in there too. I really like writing as well, Aileen. I think we've got quite a lot of overlap because I love doing a lot of arty kind of bits and pieces and some writing, and sometimes combining them too as well. So yeah, I really feel you there.
How about you, Lisa? What's your big interests that you've got going on?
Well, I was trying to think of crossovers with the other two. So I suppose that the two which have kind of been with me through my life have been sort of history in the past and languages. And then I suppose in terms of nature, horses. And it's been a long time since I've been able to ride regularly, but I do occasionally just sneak on YouTube and just horse videos because I just love that. And I would really like to connect with that interest again when I can. But I suppose, yeah, thinking about connections with what you're interested in, the birds seem to come up quite a lot, these kind of dark birds, and it made me think of the fact that one of the kind of focuses in my interest in the past and in languages has been Old Norse. Yeah, there's another bird come to see us. Hello, Marion the bird, is that right? Yay.
Well, yeah, we called it Marion Ravenwood. And he sits on our skeleton. She sits on our skeleton, Indiana Bones, on his shoulder occasionally, because we're such a punny family.
True that a group of crows is called a murder of crows. Yeah. That is. So basically we have a murder of crows right in this meeting. I wasn't expecting it to be a murder meeting, but that's all good. Anyway, so yeah, Old Norse. So one of my kind of focuses of the general universe of my interests. I think of these things as being little kind of stars and planets all moving around in a universe, which is my interest universe, would be Old Norse. And I think there is kind of quite a bit of interest in Old Norse mythology in amongst autistic people. So I hear tell. And so those of you who fit into that group will know that this idea of ravens and wisdom fits into that whole universe too. Yeah. Think about the universe also makes me think of Old Norse too, because Aileen, you mentioned your interest rotating, and I was thinking about the fact that when this meeting was set up, there was this term used for special interest or intense interest, which was spins, which I hadn't heard before. And this morning when I woke up, I was thinking, oh yeah, there's a connection to Old Norse mythology in that as well. Some of you may know what I'm thinking about, but it's the image of the vulva, which is this seer or prophetess woman who features in one of the kind of most famous Old Norse poems. And I was thinking, I really love that idea of a kind of connection between spinning and rotating and movement and thinking somehow sort of working together. So that's what I was thinking about in relation to my special interest or my spins and mythology and the word spin. You can see a little bit of how my brain works now. I hope it's not too confusing. And then, yeah, more recently, the sort of some of the planets moving around in this universe of interest have kind of changed a bit. But maybe I guess we'll talk about that later, how our interests have evolved over the past year. But yeah, those are the main ones. History, language, autism as well. Yeah, I forgot to say that obviously, like many people, when I started to realize that not just that autism was relevant to me and other people in my family, but also that it was relevant to many, many other people and many more people than I realized. Yeah, that became a strong interest, and that continues.
Kind of wondering what our experiences are of talking to other people about, about your spins, indulging in them, what kind of reactions you've had back, because yeah, like people don't always get our special interests and our need to have special interests as well, and what that's even all about at all. So yeah, it would be interesting to hear what we've all experienced with that. Because I'm lucky, I have a lot of autistic friends and family, almost exclusively, really. so it's not really an issue because we all have our own spins, and so yeah, we all kind of understand from that perspective. But yeah, I don't know about everyone else.
Yeah, that's kind of not always been the case for me. I think. I think whenever I was younger, I would get really into things, and people would sometimes sort of do a bit of a time. I go, whoa, she's really into that, really quite intensely. And I think the intensity with which I would sort of get into stuff is not something that everybody always kind of understood. And I think as well with some of the interests that I've got, some of them are much more aligned to what you would maybe expect in a 14-year-old lad instead of a 42-year-old woman. And we did have an experience a few years ago where a couple of my friends who have autistic teenage sons got exactly the same things for their Christmas day that I got for mine. So, whenever I say that, it's not just being plucked out of the air, it's been proven a few times over. And I think sort of whenever I got older, it became a little bit harder, sort of like in my teens and early 20s, to indulge in some of those. And I also grew up in a time when being a really geeky gamer girl was not valued at all. You were very, very much the outcast. And I'm really pleased that things have changed in that. Have you two had similar experiences as well, or have you just been embracing yours your entire lives anyway?
Yeah, I think it's like what I was saying before. It's hard for people. I think especially because a lot of things I do are maybe more solitary activities. You know, it's more difficult for people maybe.
Yeah.
Just to, they don't really want to give you that time or whatever necessarily, or they want to, as I say, they want to come and waltz with you, and you just want to go yourself and just look at things or draw or yeah. So that's been more of a challenge, and just I think and definitely in the past I probably would have tended not to talk about them so much because I think I just sort of realized people weren't really gonna get it or get why I was so interested. Or like you say, Marion, it was just like people felt it wasn't sort of acceptable in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I think it definitely helps if you've got other autistic people to talk about things with, and they can. And I think they're more accepting and understanding of, why you're so enthusiastic about it. So it's okay.
I think that's one of the biggest joys about being autistic for me. Sorry, Lisa, you were about to say something.
Almost exactly what you were about to say, I think. So you go first.
I was going to say, one of the things that I really love, and it's one of the best things about my job as well, is that sometimes autistic people will just come and info dump about their special interest, and I see their face light up and I see them getting really animated about it. And whether I'm into their special interest or not kind of doesn't matter, because I see their joy and then I feed off that. And then, whenever you've got a friend who's autistic as well, and then the pair of you start info dumping about your own special interest, and you take turns in the conversation and you butt in with each other, and then like, oh, my special interest is like yours because of this, that, and then you find all these. It's so freaking joyful, right? It's lovely. So, sorry, Lisa, was that along the lines of what you were, or were you thinking something?
I was thinking something very similar, and I think I've mentioned this to you before, that not having to kind of suppress enthusiasm has been such a big relief, and I hadn't realised how much I'd been doing it for more than 40 years. It really is just amazing just to be able to sort of let go and let your mind wander where it wants to go, and know that other people might even be interested in some of the sort of little quirky things which you have to see. So that's really cool. I was thinking a bit about the fact that one of the things that I suppose can be a little bit tricky for me is that most of my interests, apart from maybe horses, kind of relate in a way to my professional life. Well, I suppose you're in a similar situation with autism, actually. So, in fact, it's not different at all. But there is a kind of really unusual situation amongst people who end up specialising in history and languages, that I think along the way I have met many other people whose interest in those things possibly would qualify as being a special interest, because it's incredibly deep and incredibly enthusiastic, but it's a bit variable how comfortable I would feel showing the level of my enthusiasm. So a lot of the time I do find myself in or I have over the years found myself in situations where everybody just launches into a meeting and immediately says, did you hear that thing about ravens? And everyone just sort of clusters in and the conversation continues. So really not very different in a way from this meeting. It would feel quite similar. But then there are other situations where I feel that I have to be a little bit sort of cooler and withhold. And it's almost the overlap between the kind of personal interest and the professional interest. Sometimes that takes a little bit of thinking about. I think that's kind of a work in progress for me. So it's maybe a bit more of a complicated answer, but I am extremely lucky in that for most of my life I've been in this super privileged situation of being around other people who share my interests. I mean, I absolutely don't underestimate that level of privilege. It's been excellent, but I suppose I just can't help but kind of try and deconstruct it a bit now as I'm going along. I think there's more thinking to be done about that, as about everything, obviously.
I think that leads really, really nicely in sort of like the next topic that I wanted to sort of discuss with you all is how does your special interest manifest? Because you're saying that for you, Lisa, and I want to come back and see if there's other ways that they do as well. But for you, sort of it became a profession. And I know that for Felicity and I, sort of our special interest in autism has definitely become a profession. And I think sometimes whenever your special interest does become a profession, I know that for me, I've had to make a conscientious effort not to let it overtake my life, because I was finding that every free moment I was thinking about autism, just like constantly, and on my social media feed it was just all autism all the time, and anytime I got any notifications on my phone it was autism. The first thing in the morning whenever I was reading the news, I would go to the autism section, is there any new autism news? And I've made a really, really conscious effort to pepper things like my social media. So I'm now following accounts that have nothing to do with autism whatsoever, people who never mention it, so that I remind myself that there is a world outside of autism, and I do know that it's there, but sometimes it's really good to sort of remind myself while I'm working that there is more to life than just this one particular special interest. Although I love it, and I want to see myself retiring as an old lady, having spent my life working in it. There is more to life than just that. And I think that's where some of my other special interests have been really good, because things like Zelda, Witcher, Skyrim, Animal Crossing, because they're video games, then I will read news articles about them whenever they come out. And certainly last year through the first lockdown, there was a lot of news articles about Animal Crossing, oddly enough, which just thoroughly delighted me as a gamer. It was amazing. But you have to make time to go ahead and sort of do them, and it takes my mind away from it. And I don't tend to watch a lot of movies that have got autistic people, or TV shows that have got autistic people in them, because I like to remind myself that there is a world outside there. And when I'm building Lego, I don't think there's any space in my brain for anything else either. Like my whole entire being just gets brought up in sort of putting together this Lego and seeing it grow and develop. And you start out with this just messy pile, and then you sort of put it together brick by brick, and it's just lovely.
With breaks, Marion, I was thinking about the Lego thing. What would be my equivalent of Lego? And I think one aspect of one of my interests that is mainly detached from my professional life is the fact that my history interest has gone a little bit into family history over the past year. And I can't help myself from trying to look at broader historical movements and things occasionally when something comes up. What were our perceptions of illegitimacy in Scotland in 19th century rural areas or whatever? But I try not to let myself go down those alleys all the time, and just focus on the fact I use a kind of commercial program, a well-known commercial system, and little cards appear when you think you've identified people. You slot in details and it looks like stacking up almost like a deck of cards, and the program can sort of suggest solutions and suggest connections. And I don't use Lego myself. I'm actually very, very clumsy, so I don't do anything like that. But I wonder if the feeling is quite similar when I'm doing that. I'm kind of building and constructing these family trees, and it can be almost quite sort of hypnotic. And there's a lot of very repetitive, okay, first I'll find this census information, then I'll move on to the next census, then the next one. So it is teaching me about kind of wider social history out of the Middle Ages. So there is a use to it, but mainly it's to escape actually having to think big all the time, and just really enjoy focusing on those little details and how they connect together.
And how do your spins manifest, Flick?
Well, in the last year, obviously autism has manifested because I got a job working as an autism practitioner. So yeah, that's quite an obvious one. But the whole kind of COVID thing, well, I've been befriending some, so that's good, because that's something I can do locally without needing to sort of travel or anything. We were living with my in-laws for quite a while, and there I started feeding three crows, carrion crows, and 2 Eurasian magpies in the garden. So that was really nice, because they would start calling when I went out with the food in the morning and things. But we've now moved recently, and so where I am now, there aren't many crows or magpies, but there are loads and loads and loads of rooks and jackdaws. So I have started putting food out, and I believe that they are eating it because it is disappearing. I haven't seen any of them specifically eating the food, but given the kind of food I'm putting out and the time of day it's disappearing, I don't know what other animal would be eating it. So I'm really, really hopeful that I'm not just feeding a random rat or something, and that it is actually going to the rooks and the jackdaws. Because yeah, it's like a mix of dog food and peanuts and sunflower hearts and things, and I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, also going back to Aileen, some of your special interests, I did get into doing a lot of doodling and like drawing a lot of them. And yeah, if I had my notebook near me, if I'd planned it out better, I would have that. I could show you a couple. But so yeah, I got into drawing a lot of corvids as well, and watching a lot of YouTube videos. They all can speak English. Like they can, well, or any language, they can learn to speak, not just the ravens, which are better mimics than parrots and can mimic sounds and like men's voices, women's voice, you know, like whole range and everything. But even like crows, magpies, rooks, jackdaws, they can all learn to mimic human speech, which is pretty cool. So watching lots of videos of corvids speaking.
Wow, that's amazing. I did not know that.
Well, there you go, you see. Now you've learned something.
Yeah, I do like them as well. And I like that we're sort of friends with like birds and trees and fictional characters and things like that.
So is that how yours has been manifesting in the last kind of year? Have you been going out and making friends with the trees and that? Aileen?
Yeah, and yeah, the crows as well. Yeah, they're always good for a chat. Or yes, art subjects as well. No.
I have a duck pond at the back of my house, sort of very near us, and occasionally we'll say that we're going to go and ask the ducks the meaning of life because we can. I mean, the response is usually quack, but it's always worth asking anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, it's these conversations you can't have like with autistic people, or you'll just get sectioned them.
So what did you do today? I went to ask the ducks the meaning of life. Okay, weirdo. Whereas we're like, yeah, we totally do that. Yeah, go and speak to the birds.
Yeah, I mean, if you were talking to people who were interested in Old Norse literature, they'd be like, of course. I mean, not necessarily ducks. That avenue still has to be explored, but I look forward to exploring it.
I may have told my son's teacher that, and she was very understanding and hoped that they gave us a good answer. So I did tell her that the answer was quack. And she was like, makes sense.
I mean, there's actually 42, isn't it? But that's another special interest.
As a 42-year-old woman, I'm very happy about that. I'm not going to be happy because I'm not going to be the meaning of life anymore. Yeah.
Rather than staying 18 forever, you know, autistic people will stay 42 forever because we're like, no, we can't move on from the meaning of life, the universe.
No, I can move on. I've got my towel. It's fine. So don't panic. Yeah.
I was going to say, Lisa, what are the names of Odin's ravens again? Is it Hugin and no Moomin?
Now I'm going to make a complete fool of myself. I think it's Hugin and Moonin. I actually is it in my book that I co-edited?
What is
Theorizing Old Norse Myth? I don't think I don't think the ravens were in there, but I think it's Hugin and Moonin. Can you edit that out if I get it wrong? Or I can edit it, me in with the right names. But
show us your book.
Well, this was just one that I co-edited. I don't know if it's called. This was a while ago. So Theorizing Old Norse Myth. And then another one was, so editing is quite interesting because that, depending on the type of editing, can be quite detail focused as well, in the sense of not having to think so much about the ideas, but just getting it all neat and tidy. And this one is New Approaches to Early Law in Scandinavia. That was also co-edited. But the one that I finished this year, this was one of the manifestations this year, was I had another book which came out, which was a group translation of the laws of Eastern Norway from the Middle Ages. And I've been working on that one for 10 years-ish with my incredibly lovely co-authors, and who are just wonderful, patient, kind, and knowledgeable human beings. And who were okay with taking time over it. But that was really special. And I was thinking about this last night, how there was this burst of action over summer last year when I suddenly kind of reconnected with the personal interest a little bit. I think for so long, for years, I'd been worrying all about the sort of technical things I could get wrong. And there are a lot. When you're talking about Old Norwegian dialectology, focusing on Eastern areas, there were so many ways I could get that embarrassingly wrong. And I'm sure I have. But I'd become so kind of focused on those technical details that I think I'd forgotten that there's a whole section which is about women's rights. And I just went ahead, I think, in a night and revised my draft of that, because I suddenly remembered, actually it's really interesting to think about women's rights in the Middle Ages or at any point, and everybody's rights. So it was quite strange. That kind of went full circle from, an initial personal interest to something that I was then doing as part of a job. And then suddenly, last year, the atmosphere was so strange, wasn't it? Everything was so strange, and so many things were put into perspective that I found myself behaving in that personally interested way for a bit over summer, where I was kind of waking up early with the birds singing. I don't know if they were crows or not, maybe, I'm not sure. And just feeling like now I have to go in and sit down, and I want to sit down and do this. But then again, it went straight back into fear, what you're talking about, the intensity of interest being difficult sometimes. So I hadn't actually opened it since it arrived from the publisher. I think I'd flashed the cover at various people, but not opened it. So it was only last night I was able to do that. And look at it again, and I had exactly the same experience again. Wow, this is a really thorny thicket of information, but I could see myself now kind of going back to it and enjoying it and really delving into those details again. So that's a really strange example of an interest kind of morphing between something that was really enjoyable, something that felt difficult and intense, and then kind of coming back out the other side again. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if, Aileen, if you get a similar thing with some of your art and writing and stuff, because I know that I sometimes do, where like it gets to a point where it gets difficult and then it's not quite the same anymore, like in the way of a special interest. But if you can get past that hump, you're back into the really joyful part again. So do you get that?
Yeah, I think especially with fiction, I would say more than poetry, because it's like, I guess it's just so short, you don't have time to get too bogged down in anything, and I guess your inner critic kicks in as well, which of course can happen to anyone, and you start just maybe over criticizing yourself, or just, I suppose the point as well, if you are writing fiction or things like that, you do get to the point where you do need to look critically at it, and say, right, what do I need to edit and change? So it's sort of, I don't know if that's to do with just like self-confidence or self-esteem or things like that, or just having the confidence, or maybe just the support to sort of overcome that, or have some, then you maybe have somebody else look at it or give suggestions. So it's yeah, I think there is a process with any, if you are looking to share things you're creating, where you do start to involve other people, or you do start to look at it very critically, and it's how you go about that is I think the challenge, that you go about it in a helpful way, rather than just sort of feeling you're not good enough at the thing, or whatever. So yeah, there's a definite point, especially I think, yeah, when you are looking to share what you're doing more widely.
Yeah.
Sharing your interests again, isn't it? Like Aileen's poem showed so beautifully that feeling of being immersed in something on your own, but then it's sort of so nice to flip between the sharing and then the being on your own and kind of reflecting, and it just made me think of an incident that happened this year, which was with Marion and I, where Marshall College in Aberdeen was lit up in gold, which was amazing, and we had independently decided to go off and see it on our own, and both had that experience of being there, absorbing the beautiful historic building on our own, but then ran into each other and got to experience it together. And that's slightly off the topic of special interest, but I suppose autism connects it. But it kind of really illustrated for me how important it was to have both those experiences, being absorbed by myself and then sharing as well.
That was so much fun. And it was thanks to Felicity that Marshall College got lit up gold in the first place. So you're the one who went and chased it up. So I'm so proud. You did such a marvelous job, and it looked amazing. And yeah, I honestly couldn't have been happier. I think it was there are many really proud moments of my career, but standing outside Marshall College and seeing it all lit up gold was right up there. It really was. And then getting to experience it with a friend as well. It was, I mean, how much did we bounce up and down in STEM? So
yeah, I was on mute a lot.
a lot. Before we wrap up, Aileen, you created something really, really cool. So can we share it? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Do you want to? I love it. Do you want to talk to us about it?
Yeah, so I basically just built Autistic Pride Aberdeen out of Lego last year, as you do. I think it was when you were just really ill, Marion. So I think I was just trying to cheer you up. And then and then a while later I was like, why don't they have Autistic Pride flags? So I gave them flags for them. So it just got more and more elaborate. But yeah, that was just like one of the pictures.
That yeah, because last year I think I had COVID, and you were really kind at sort of as I was in recovery and trying to sort of get better. And it was before we were able to get tested to find out whether or not we had. So I was kind of lying in bed thinking, I have no idea what's going on. And then you'd offered, can I make any models to cheer anyone up? So yes. And I think that's beautiful. I really am hoping that next year we will be able to get out and do Autistic Pride in person. And in previous years, we've gone to Hazelhead Park and we've blown bubbles and we've ran around saying, we're autistic. And if I don't have Autistic Pride flags like these two next year, I'm going to be so disappointed.
Yeah, they're pretty big, actually.
Well, you say that, but we got these massive things for making enormous bubbles. So I think we'll manage. I just need to talk the council into saying yes to that, but I'm sure we can manage. I'm sure we can. Yeah, but I really wish that we had more time. That we could talk about this for days and weeks on end. And I think that we definitely need to get together as a little group, because I have so many more questions for each of you about your special interests. And I know that as soon as we finish, I'm going to think about 15 million things that I should have asked, and I want to again. But can I just say how much I've thoroughly enjoyed exploring these special interests with you all. It's been enormous fun, and thank you for sharing and showing off your beautiful artwork and sharing your books and your emotional support, Crow, and for putting up with me sharing my DuckTales and dragons and all sorts too. Yeah, but I hope that everybody else has enjoyed sort of watching and that you found something that you've been able to relate to, and I hope that you will have lots of time getting to enjoy your own special interests. Yep. Right. Bye.
Thank you.